Hello and welcome to another edition of RHOX Garage. I'm your host Kevin. On today's episode, we're going to show you how to install our new Rhino seat kit, part number SEAT-421, with the optional safety grab bar, which is part number SEAT-688, on this 2010 Club Car DS. Now before we begin, we want to show you what's included with your new Rhino seat kit, as well as the tools necessary to perform the installation. Here are the components that are included with your new Rhino seat kit. First up, we have our foot plate assembly, as well as our 2 foot plate supports. We also have 2 vertical support brackets, followed by 2 front seat back support brackets. You will also receive 2 handrails, along with a rear seat support frame and 2 rear seat back mounting brackets. Also included will be the seat kit platform, which will transform into your utility deck. The next items we have are the rear seat bottom and rear seat back in the color of your choice, followed by the rear seat bottom handle, and lastly, all of the necessary mounting hardware. Now if you elect to install our optional safety grab bar, what you'll receive with that will be the grab bar itself, as well as all of the necessary mounting hardware. Now here's a closer look at the tools that we will be using to perform the installation. First up, we have a Phillips head screwdriver, followed by a ratchet with 10mm, 17mm, 7/16, and 1/2 inch sockets. Also, we'll be using a 10mm, 13mm, 7/16, and a 1/2 inch wrench. Also to be used, a cordless drill, and lastly, a cordless impact. And now that we've gone over the tools that we will be using, we're ready to begin the installation. Now before we can begin installing our new Rhino seat kit, we have to disassemble some of the factory components that are going to be in the way. Now it's important to note that we're going to be doing the installation on a new style Club Car DS. Now this seat kit will fit both new and old style. However, if you're using an old style, some of these instructions that we're showing you in the video may be a little different from what you have. But don't worry, our comprehensive installation booklet also covers how to do the installation on the old style Club Car DS. Now our first step in doing the disassembly of the factory components is to remove the bolts securing the rear struts to the upper portion of the top. Now if you're going to be reusing the factory top, what you want to do is retain the hardware once you remove it from the struts. Also, if you're going to be reusing the factory top, you could also leave the front struts attached and simply use a prop rod to keep your top from flexing once the rear struts have been removed. So our next step is going to be to remove the 2 bolts on each side that's securing the lower portion of our rear struts. Once removed, you're going to want to retain this hardware as it will be reinstalled later on in the process. Once you have this hardware removed, you can then go ahead and safely remove the rear struts. Once the rear struts are out of the way, you're going to want to take your prop rod to keep your top lifted up and from flexing during the rest of the installation process. At this point, we need to go ahead and remove our front seat back. Now in order to do this, we need to remove the 2 bolts on each side of the seat back so that we can pull it away from the front seat back mounting bracket. Now it's important to remember when removing the hardware that you only want to use hand tools and not air or power tools, as you could potentially damage the threads on the seat back. Now you're also going to want to retain the factory hardware once it has been removed. Continuing on with our disassembly, we're going to want to remove the factory access panel by removing the 2 bolts securing it in place. Once the hardware is removed, we want to retain that hardware as well as the factory access cover, as it will be reinstalled. With our access cover out of the way, we can now remove the factory hardware securing the rear portion of our sweater basket assembly to the cart. Once you have the hardware removed, we're going to want to retain it as it will be reinstalled later on in the process. Our next step is going to be to remove the 4 bolts that are securing the front portion of the sweater basket assembly to the cart itself. Now these bolts are going to be located just behind the front seat bottom, and in order to access them, you're going to want to lift the front seat bottom up so that we can remove them and get them out of the way. Once these bolts have been removed, you're going to want to retain this hardware as it will be reused later on. However, the sweater basket assembly can be removed and discarded. Now the last step in the disassembly portion is to remove the rear bumper. Now once we have the bumper removed, we're going to want to retain the rear bumper as well as the mounting hardware, as they will be reused. Once you have the bumper removed from the cart, you want to go ahead and flip it over and find the plate located on the underside of the bumper. Once you find this plate, you can then go ahead and remove it and discard it, as it will not be reused. With our teardown now complete, we can begin installing the new Rhino seat kit. Now first up is to install the new front seat back support mounting bracket. Now this bracket will have the two mounting holes at the bottom facing towards the front of the cart. They will line up with the factory locations and be secured in place using the factory mounting hardware. However, the rear mounting hole will use the mounting hardware provided in bag number 1 in your hardware kit. Now, the flat washer and lock nut that is from the factory bolt we removed will be reused to secure this bolt in place. The factory bolt that we removed can be discarded. Now once you've loosely attached one front seat back mounting bracket, you can move over to the other side and loosely attach the other one. Now once you've tightened the hardware on the front seat back mounting brackets, you want to reinstall the access panel cover. Now you can reinstall this using the factory hardware that we removed earlier in the process.
Now at this time we're going to install our vertical support brackets, which is also going to entail reinstalling our rear bumper. Now when installing the vertical support brackets, you want to make sure that you take the two washers that are included in bag number 2 of your hardware kit and place them on top of the vertical support bracket on the outside mounting points. Once you've done this, you can put the bumper in place and secure it using the factory hardware that was removed earlier in the process. Now, I recommend having somebody assist you with this process, as it may be a little difficult to get the bumper aligned while holding the vertical support brackets.
And now at this point, once you have everything in place, you want to leave the hardware loose at this time until we put the platform in place. Once we have the platform lined up, we can then come back and tighten the hardware on the bumper and vertical support brackets. Now before we grab the seat kit platform and install it onto the cart, what I suggest doing is grabbing a piece of cardboard or foam and laying it over the body of the cart. That way when you're installing the seat kit platform, you don't scratch or damage the body of the cart. Now that we have our cardboard in place, we can go ahead and set the seat kit platform onto the cart. Now we're going to line the mounting holes up on the platform with the mounting holes on the vertical support brackets as well as on the front seat back mounting brackets. Once you have these holes lined up, we're going to take the hardware that's included in bag number 2 of our hardware kit to secure everything in place. The 10x30 bolts are going to go through the front seat back mounting brackets, and the 10x25 bolts are going to go through the vertical support brackets. Now once you have the hardware loosely installed, we can then remove the cardboard and then go back and tighten the hardware on the seat kit platform, as well as the hardware securing the vertical support bracket and the bumper. Now at this time we're going to install the optional safety grab bar onto our footplate assembly. Now if you're not going to be installing a safety grab bar, you can feel free to skip this step in the installation process. Now the first thing we need to do to install the safety grab bar is to drill out the two outermost holes on the footplate assembly. Now this is only going to be necessary on the outside of the footplate assembly and not the side where the mounting tabs are located. Once you've done this, you can then take the safety grab bar, line up the mounting tabs with the captured nuts with the notch outs on the underside of the footplate assembly, and secure everything in place using the mounting hardware provided with your safety grab bar. For our next step, we're going to loosely attach the footplate assembly to the vertical support brackets using the provided hardware in bag number 3 of your hardware kit. So now we're ready to attach our handrails to our seat kit. Now the proper way to attach the handrails is to start by taking the long side and have that facing towards the rear of the cart. The first attachment we're going to do is the upper mounting hole. This is going to attach to the furthest most hole on the seat kit platform using the Phillips head bolt, flat washer, and lock nut that's included in bag number 4 of your hardware kit. Now keep in mind, all of this hardware we're only going to loosely attach at this time. Once we have the handrails completely installed, we'll come back and tighten all of the hardware that we left loose. And once you have this handrail attached, you can move over to the other side and attach your other handrail in the same manner. Next, we're going to install the footplate supports onto the handrail and footplate assembly. Now to do this, we're going to slide the support up onto the handrail, lining up the mounting hole on the footplate support with the mounting hole on the handrail as well as on the footplate assembly. Once we have all these holes lined up, we can secure it in place with the provided mounting hardware. Now at this time, we're going to install the rear seat back support frame. Now this piece is going to go on the inside of the seat kit platform, and the two mounting holes will line up with the mounting holes on your arm rail as well as the bottom hole lining up with the seat kit platform. You'll then secure everything in place with the mounting hardware provided. Keep in mind, all of the mounting hardware that is used to attach the handrail can be found in bag number 4 of your hardware kit. Now it's important to note that when installing the hardware through the upper mounting holes, you want to be sure to install the provided plastic spacer in between to prevent any unwanted metal-on-metal contact. And once you have all of the hardware loosely installed, we want to come back through and secure everything in place. Now our next step is to reinstall the front seat back. Now in order to do this, we need to locate the 4 1/4 by 1 inch bolts as well as 4 flat washers located in bag number 6 of the included hardware kit. Once you have these bolts and washers in hand, we can then line the holes up on our seat back with the holes on the front seat back mounting bracket. Now remember, when installing these bolts, you only want to tighten with hand tools and not power or air tools because we don't want to damage the threads on the seat back. Now before we can attach the rear seat back to the cart, we need to install the rear seat back mounting brackets to the seat back itself. Now in order to do this, you need to identify which side of the rear seat back is up. Now, the upside of the rear seat back will be the side that has the notch out in it. Once you've identified this, you can take your rear seat back mounting bracket, take the side with the hook end facing down, so opposite of the notch out in the seat back, line it up with the mounting hole on the seat back, and secure it in place using the 6x25 bolt, as well as the lock and flat washers that are included in bag number 5 of your hardware kit. Now be sure to only use hand tools when attaching this hardware, and do not use power or air tools so that you don't damage the thread on the seat back. Now once the rear seat back mounting brackets have been attached to the rear seat back, we can install the rear seat back assembly onto the rear seat support frame using the 10x45 bolts, flat washers, and lock nuts that are included in bag number 5 of your hardware kit. With our rear seat back now installed, the next thing we want to do is to install the rear seat bottom. Now in order to do this, you want to take a look at the underside of the rear seat bottom and locate the notch outs that are all throughout the underside of the seat bottom. You want to line these notch outs up with the mounting tabs on the rear seat kit platform. And once you have them lined up, you should be able to slide the rear seat bottom into place, and you should feel it firmly lock in. Once you have the rear seat bottom cushion in place, you want to fold the seat kit platform over and locate the 2 threaded holes at the end of the platform. Now once you've found these holes, you're going to take the rear seat bottom handle and attach it to those mounting holes using the 2 screws provided in bag number 5 of your hardware kit. Now it's extremely important that you remember to install the rear seat bottom handle, as not only is it going to assist you with opening and closing your seat kit platform, but it's what will keep the rear seat bottom locked into place. Now our next step is to reinstall the original struts. Now in order to do this, we want to first remove the prop rod, as it will no longer be needed. Now at this point, I recommend installing the upper portion of the strut first into the top and securing it using the hardware that we removed earlier on in the process. This will make it easier to line up the mounting holes on the lower portion of the strut with the front seat back mounting bracket. Now an important note when it comes to the hardware we're going to use to secure the lower portion of the OE strut to the front seat back support bracket. You're going to want to use the hardware that we removed from the OE front seat back, as well as a washer and lock nut that was removed from the OE rear strut. Once you've loosely attached one strut, you can move over to the other side and install the other strut in the same fashion. Once you have the other strut installed, you can then go back and tighten all of your hardware. Now that we have our rear struts reinstalled and everything's nice and tight, the last thing we want to do is go back and check all of our hardware, making sure that we've secured it along the way. The last thing we want to do is leave anything loose. Once you've verified all your hardware is nice and secure, that'll complete the installation of our new Rhino seat kit, part number SEAT-421, with the optional safety grab bar, part number SEAT-688, on this 2010 Club Car DS. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.